My husband Zhou Suyan has been acting very off lately. He's usually so articulate when judging cases in court, yet these past few days when speaking to me, his eyes keep dodging mine, and he stumbles over his words. He dragged it out like this for several days. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore and secretly sent someone to drop a hint, and only then did he seem to make up his mind. That day after dinner, he dawdled and wouldn't leave. Ah, Tang! His voice was tight, his fingers unconsciously rubbing the hem of his clothes over and over. I have something I want to discuss with you. What is it? I set down the teacup. The crisp clinking sound made his shoulders tremble. It's just, I want to marry an equal wife. The last few words came out fast and hurried. If I hadn't already known the inside story, I'm afraid I really wouldn't have heard clearly what he was saying. What did you say? Say it again. My voice was unusually calm. Seeing me like this, he instead just threw caution to the wind. His tone steadied a bit, but he still didn't dare look me in the eye. I said, I want to marry an equal wife. It's that woman you saw when you came to the yamen before. Zhou Suyan, leaving aside our relationship, just speaking of the elders. Do you think Mom and Dad will agree? Will my father and brothers consent? These words obviously stirred up his memories, and he froze for a moment. Zhou Suyan and I were childhood sweethearts. He was a quiet scholar, and I was the tiger daughter of a general's family. The year I came of age, he passed the imperial examination with high honors, and dressed in red robes, he married me with great pomp. It has been no more than 2 years since then. I still remember that wedding day. Eldest brother and second brother, with red-rimmed eyes, warned him, Zhou Suyan, if you dare let our sister suffer the slightest grievance, we will surely break your bones, then bring her back home in grand style, so you never see her again for all eternity. Back then, he held my hand tightly, his eyes reflecting the candlelight and filled with me. Tang, in this life, Suyan will never let you down. The words are still ringing in the ears, but the heart has already changed. But he quickly snapped out of it and defended himself. She has a gentle nature, excels at both cooking and embroidery, and compliments you perfectly. And she definitely won't fight with you over anything. There will just be one more person in the manor. Your authority and status won't be shaken in the slightest. It's just because she's expecting snap. Before he could even finish speaking, I had already stood up, raised my hand, and slapped him with all my might. A bright red handprint instantly appeared on his face, and blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. It's so you can enjoy the bliss of having a wife and a concubine, isn't it? Is the manor short of cooks, or lacking seamstresses? If that's so, why did you marry me in the first place? Hearing these words with my own ears, I was still uncontrollably furious. I raised my hand and ruthlessly gave him 2 more slaps, hitting him so hard that my palms stung. Those 2 slaps made his head spin, but actually made me even more clear-headed. I grabbed a wooden ruler nearby and started beating him. I was extremely precise with my strikes. Though the pain went to the bone, they left no marks. I have endured a long time for this day. Tired from the beating, I threw down the ruler and, face covered in tear stains, stumbled into my mother-in-law's courtyard. I said nothing, just threw myself onto my mother-in-law's knees and wailed, trembling all over. My father-in-law was also alarmed. Seeing this, he was both heartbroken and furious, and immediately sent someone to call Zhou Suyan. Perhaps because the secret was out, he actually seemed much more at ease. His words full of deep emotion. He said he and Zhang Yue couldn't help themselves, and that his feelings for me were just as before, unchanged. But no matter how they tried to comfort me or scold him, I just kept my head down, letting tears fall like a broken string of beads. I sat blankly in my mother-in-law's courtyard all night. He also knelt on the blue stone slabs in the courtyard all night. Whenever he was about to mention the word pregnant, I would cry louder to drown out his voice. Just as the sky was getting light, my body went limp and I fainted. The Zhou household instantly turned into a mess. My mother-in-law's exclamations, my father-in-law's reprimands, and the chaotic footsteps of the maids and servants all intertwined. Amidst this chaos, I closed my eyes, my heart cold as iron. Once I faintly came to, Zhou Suyan spoke up impatiently. Tang, you've hit me and you've made a scene. Surely you've vented your anger by now. Ignoring my murderous gaze, he continued, Oh, I wanted to take things slow, to give you some time to accept it. But Yuer, she's pregnant, and really, she can't wait any longer. Is this just your idea? Or is it your whole family's idea? I've discussed it with father and mother. An equal wife is indeed inappropriate, but she is allowed to enter the household first with the status of a concubine. I signaled with a glance, and Quiyun invited him out. I was so angry I raised my hand and knocked over the cup beside me. If I hadn't noticed earlier and planted spies, I'm afraid I really would have been angered to death by this generous gift of his. Thinking back to that day, I had just come out of my mother-in-law's courtyard when Quiyun met me with a grave expression, pulled me hurriedly back to the yard without a word, and said incoherently, Miss, the son-in-law, he is pregnant. What got it? Didn't get it. Speak slowly. I frowned, my heart tightening inexplicably. It's that Zhang Yue. The people we sent to tail her reported back, saying she's pregnant. She's already 2 months along. The news exploded like a thunderclap. I staggered a step and stood there frozen. After regaining my senses, I walked blankly to the table, wanting to pour a cup of water to steady myself. The scalding tea overflowed the cup and spilled onto the back of my hand, yet I remained completely unaware. Miss, the water is full! Quiyun screamed in alarm as she snatched the teapot away. Seeing the large red burn on the back of my hand, her eyes reddened with anxiety, and she frantically went to fetch the burn ointment. It wasn't until the icy ointment touched my skin that the sharp, stinging pain finally cleared my muddled mind a little. For a moment, I couldn't quite tell if the burning pain on my hand was worse, or if the wrenching pain in my heart was harder to bear. I thought I had already accepted Zhou Suyan's change of heart, but hearing the news that that woman was pregnant, the dam I had built in my heart still collapsed in an instant. If I still had a shred of delusional hope before that Zhou Suyan would change his mind, then at this moment, it has all turned to ashes. That night, Zhou Suyan uncharacteristically came home early, claiming he wanted to keep me company. Ever since we got married, he was busy with official duties for the first half of the year, and for the latter half, I suppose he was busy with someone else. During dinner, he looked agitated. Several times he was about to speak, but in the end, he forcibly swallowed the words back. His heart and eyes were completely filled with that woman's affairs. He didn't even notice the glaring red swelling on the back of my hand. He didn't speak, so naturally I wasn't going to rush to give him an out. Just like that, the meal was dull and tasteless for both of us. We had agreed that we were both still immature, and with his official duties getting busier, we decided not to plan for children these past 2 years. Thinking back on it now, how ironic. It all started a while back when, on a whim, I carried a food box to the government office to visit him. From a distance, I saw a woman in plain clothes pulling and tugging at him at the gate of the government office. I hurried forward to intervene. Up close, the woman indeed looked gentle and graceful, with a timidity in her eyes that provoked pity. Though dressed simply, her natural beauty couldn't be hidden. When Zhou Suyan saw me, he looked as if he'd been granted a pardon, and let out a long sigh of relief. Ah, Tang, you're just in time. This Miss Zhang, her father is involved in a case and she came to plead for mercy. But this is against the law, and I'm really in a difficult position. I didn't think much of it at the time, and even comforted that young lady with a few gentle words. But ever since then, Zhou Suyan came home later, and later each day. Even when he did return, he was often absent-minded. At first, he only mentioned it occasionally at the dinner table. Today, while holding court, I saw that Miss Zhang again. Her father's case has taken a turn for the better. and upon hearing the news, she actually kowtowed outside the yamen to give thanks. She really knows how to repay kindness. I was just picking up some food and answered casually, "Knowing gratitude is a good thing." Later, he started talking more and more. "Tang, you didn't see it. That Miss Jiang, just to make a living, actually made embroidery to sell. Her craftsmanship is exquisite, no worse than the Jingxiu workshops. For a woman to be so resilient, it is truly admirable." I put down my chopsticks and glanced at him. It really isn't easy. Later on, comparisons unconsciously crept into his words. That night, because I'd been writing during the day, I accidentally tore my sleeve. Seeing this, he sighed. "Oh, you, always so reckless. If you had even half of Miss Jiang's quiet grace, I'd be able to rest easy." I was instantly displeased. I raised my head and looked him straight in the eye. "Zhou Suyan, what is that supposed to mean? I, Shen Qingtang, have been this way since I was a child. Did you just find out today?" He seemed stung by my gaze and hurriedly looked away, his tone softening. I didn't mean it like that. I just wish you could be a bit more composed." It was from that moment that I clearly realized my husband's heart, which once held only me, had now given up the better half of its space to another woman. It was also from then on that I secretly sent someone to tail Zhou Suyan. Every time news of their secret trysts was sent back, my heart felt like it was being pricked by a needle. Since they've been heartless, they can't blame me for being ruthless. I ordered Kuiyun to pack our valuables, while Kuiyu went to make other preparations. From the moment I stepped out of the Zhou manor, the show I had arranged began. 2 pages guarded my carriage on the left and right. One held a copper gong, striking it while shouting in a booming voice, every word crystal clear. "Come look, everyone. Official Zhou Suyan has flouted the law and fallen in love with the daughter of a criminal. My young mistress is virtuous and kind, but unable to bear such humiliation. She begged bitterly in her mother-in-law's courtyard all night, only to leave in heartbreak. She repeated the same few lines over and over, spinning them in different ways, shouting all the way from the Zhou residence to the front of Duke Shen's manor. In less than half a day, Zhou Suyan's romantic escapades had spread all over the capital, becoming the hot gossip in every household over tea and meals. When my dad got back from court and heard about it, he was so angry his beard stood on end. He wanted to draw his sword on the spot and go settle the score with Zhou Suyan, and ask his in-law just how he raised his son while he was at it. It took a lot of talking from me and my brothers to finally stop him. My plan was to let the scandal ferment for a few days, wait until the Zhou family's name was dragged through the mud, and then calmly hand over the divorce papers. Who knew that very afternoon Zhou Suyan would show up at our door himself? He must have been out of his mind with anger. With his clothes all disheveled, he stood in front of the Duke's manor, ignoring the servants' attempts to stop him, and loudly berated me for being vulgar and rude, jealous by nature, corrupting the family morals, and barren, threatening to cast me out. No one inside answered his crazy ranting. When he finally yelled himself tired, the gate suddenly burst open, and my big brother, second brother, and a few servants unleashed a rain of fists upon him. In the end, it was my second sister-in-law who came out wielding a broom, whacking him right in the face so hard he stumbled, and swept him down the street in a sorry state. At dusk, my father-in-law and mother-in-law hurried over, looking embarrassed. My father-in-law repeatedly guaranteed that he had already disciplined Zhou Suyan according to family rules, and promised again and again that there was absolutely no way Jiang Yue would be made a co-wife. Seeing my parents' expressions soften a bit, my mother-in-law tentatively spoke up. "Tong, 1,000 wrongs, 10,000 wrongs. It is all Anair's fault. It's just, what Jiang Yue carries in her belly is the Zhou family's bloodline after all. So I discussed it with your father-in-law. Why not let her enter the household as a concubine? Once the child is born, won't she be yours to deal with as you please?" I picked up the teacup, gently brushing aside the floating foam, without even lifting my eyelids. I appreciate your kindness, mother-in-law, but I have no interest in raising other people's children. Today a Jiang Yue came. Who knows if tomorrow there won't be a Li Yue or Wang Yue's. Seeing how determined I was, my dad's face instantly darkened, and he unceremoniously invited them out. How about it, sister-in-law? Was my performance passable? I looked proudly at sister-in-law. Mom pulled me into her arms and said softly, "Tanger, don't be afraid. As long as you're happy, Mom and Dad will support you no matter what you decide." Looking at my brothers and sisters-in-law in front of me all nodding in agreement, my nose stung. What I lost was just someone who doesn't love me. But I have the most solid backing in the whole world. 3 days passed like this, and no one from the Zhou family came to the door again. Huiyun found out some news, saying Zhou Suyan was locked in the ancestral hall and beaten for 2 whole days. Yet he refused to admit his fault no matter what. And on the 3rd day, he actually found an opening and ran out. I originally thought he was going to elope with Jiang Yue, but unexpectedly, by evening, he openly brought her back to the Zhou residence. Mother Zhou looked at her slightly bulging belly and finally softened a bit. But she specifically hired a doctor to check her pulse, and only after confirming she was indeed pregnant did she reluctantly allow her in, yet she didn't give her any status. Yue moved in just like that, without any clear status. And the matter I asked father to handle went very smoothly. Second brother even volunteered himself to go deliver this big gift. "Tomorrow morning," I instructed Kuei-yun, "you go to the Zhou residence and hand this divorce letter to Zhou Suyan personally. While you're at it, bring back all my dowry." "Yes, miss," Kuei-yun agreed, then asked, "Then, what about Nanny Li?" "Tell Aunt Li she doesn't need to go to the Zhou residence anymore," I said indifferently. After all, that is no longer my mother-in-law, no longer needing to pretend to be virtuous and proper. I just slept soundly at home. It wasn't until noon the next day, when Kuei-yun came back in a grand procession with the team carrying the dowry, that I finally got up to wash and dress. "Miss, you really didn't see the scene." Kuei-yun, looking excited, began to describe it vividly. When I slammed the divorce papers in front of the master, in front of Zhou Suyan, his face turned green. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? What did he say?" Kuei-yun put her hands on her hips, mimicking his tone. "Shen Qingtang is actually so heartless. Is she really doing this?" I replied to him, "Oh, Lord Zhou, everyone in the capital knows who the heartless one is. This divorce letter, are you signing it or not? If you don't, we'll see you in court. It'll be the perfect chance to let the magistrate judge just what kind of logic it is to dote on a criminal's daughter and drive away your lawful wife." His hands were shaking so bad at the time, he couldn't even hold the pen steady. With the servants watching, he couldn't afford to lose face, so he just gritted his teeth and signed. Kuei-yun took a sip of water and continued. The real shocker came after. After I finished tallying the dowry, the second young master immediately brought out an imperial decree. After the decree was read, everyone in the hall had a different look on their face. That Jiang Yue especially never expected that after being in the manor for barely 2 days, she'd actually be the official wife, and personally appointed by the emperor at that. All the servants were squeezing into the corridor to watch the drama. In the end, the second young master, even Q, I gave a cold laugh. This is all just the beginning. Never mind an equal wife. Now I've even given the position of main wife to his Yue heir. I'll even make sure they grow old together, never to part. I really want to see just what kind of state this virtuous wife and loving mother can manage the Zhou manor into. Over the next 2 months, eldest sister-in-law and second sister-in-law took turns keeping me company to relieve my boredom. Eldest sister-in-law made all sorts of fancy snacks for me, changing it up every day. Luckily, second sister-in-law went riding and archery with me daily. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have been fed into a round little dumpling. On top of that, Kuei-yun often dug up jokes about the Zhou family to make me laugh. I heard that Jiang Yue, just to show off how thrifty and good at housekeeping she is, actually wanted to dismiss all the servants in the manor. If her father-in-law hadn't stopped her, she probably would have swept the courtyard herself. And those rustic dishes she cooks at first, Jo Suyan thought they were a nice change. But after eating them for 2 or 3 months straight, he was completely fed up. Her embroidery skills really are something, to the point where Jo Suyan often went to court wearing patched clothes. Even my dad jokingly asked if the Jo family was going broke. As for her gentleness and thoughtfulness, it turned out to be micromanaging every little detail, restraining him at every turn, causing his colleagues to joke that Jo Suyan had essentially married another strict mother into the house. Madame Jo's health, which had already largely recovered thanks to my careful nursing, collapsed once again from the anger caused by Zhang Yue. I originally thought that since she was hand-picked by the emperor, she might be passable after some patient coaching, but who knew that taking her to a banquet would result in such a loss of face? From attire to food, she was completely clueless, making a laughingstock of herself quite a few times. She had intended to serve the medicine herself, but her clumsiness only made her mother-in-law's condition worse. Now when her mother-in-law sees her, she can't even be bothered to lift an eyelid. It's laughable to say, but on the day I first heard of Jo Suyan's betrayal, I completely lost my head and grabbed a whip to go beat that pair of cheating dogs to death. Seeing my bloodshot eyes and murderous aura, Yun was scared out of her wits. Not that she cared about the lives of that cheating pair, but because she was truly afraid I'd hurt myself in my rage. The girl acted decisively, quietly ordering the coachman to turn around and go straight back to the Duke's manor. I was filled with rage with nowhere to vent it, so I just went along with it and returned home. Eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law. As soon as I saw my 2 sisters-in-law, I immediately threw myself into their arms, all my pent-up grievances turning into a downpour of tears. After haltingly telling the whole story, eldest sister-in-law gently stroked my back and softly comforted me. Tanger, don't cry. Wait for your eldest brother to return to the manor. We'll definitely make Jo Suyan give you an explanation. Second sister-in-law had a fiery temper. She immediately slammed the table and stood up. What explanation? Just let your second brother fight his way to their door, and let the whole capital see the good deeds Jo Suyan has done. Don't. I hurriedly grabbed second sister-in-law's sleeve, eyes blurred with tears. If my brothers find out, I'm afraid someone might get killed. After crying my heart out, I actually calmed down. Second sister-in-law's eyebrows shot up. Then what's your plan? Don't tell second sister-in-law you plan to swallow your pride. I wiped my tears with my sleeve, my eyes turning cold. That won't happen? Isn't it because I couldn't make up my mind that I came to find you sisters-in-law to discuss a plan? The 3 of us sat around carefully discussing our strategy. Eldest sister-in-law taught me how to win over mother-in-law's heart, so that even if she enters the door, she won't catch mother-in-law's eye. Second sister-in-law taught me the way to handle that mistress, make them stay together forever, yet come to resent each other. After returning to the manor, seeing that I looked relieved, Quiyu tentatively spoke up. Miss? Over at the master's place? Are we still sending people to keep an eye on him? Naturally. And watch him tight. We can't let the slightest clue slip by. With a single palm strike, I sent the fallen leaves in the courtyard flying. Early the next morning, the Jiangnan cook second sister-in-law sent over arrived at the manor. Second sister-in-law and mother-in-law are both from Jiangnan. Back when she married my second brother, her parents couldn't bear to part with her, so they specially had Auntie Zhang from the household go along to take care of her. Auntie Zhang originally didn't want to leave her hometown, but her father waved his hand generously and had Auntie Zhang's whole family brought along too. Second brother even promised that her grandson could attend the best private school in the capital, so he could earn an official rank in the future. And since mother-in-law married far away to the capital over 20 years ago, the times she returned home could be counted on one hand, let alone getting a taste of authentic hometown flavors. I especially had Aunt Zhang first make a few exquisite pastries, osmanthus dingsheng cake and longjing tea pastry. When I stepped into the courtyard, mother-in-law had just woken from a nap, still carrying a trace of sleepiness. Seeing me, her brows smoothed out, and she asked with a smile, "Why is Qing Tang here?" I happened to come across some Jiangnan pastries. I don't know if they're authentic or not, so I brought them especially for Mother to appraise. I smiled and opened the food box. The sweet scent of the pastries mixed with the tea fragrance and spread gently. Hearing this, my mother-in-law extended a finger and tapped my forehead lightly, scolding with a laugh. "You mischievous girl! Now you've learned to tease me, too." She picked up a piece of Longjing tea pastry and tasted it carefully. At first, it seemed ordinary, but as that touch of clear sweetness dissolved on the tip of her tongue, her eyes suddenly lit up, and there seemed to be a glint of tears flashing in them. "Yes, it's this taste." Her voice carried a choke. "How many years has it been since I've tasted such an authentic flavor of home? Even what's sold at the best pastry shops in the capital is always lacking a little something." As she spoke, she seemed to fall into distant memories, murmuring in a low voice. "When I was still a maiden, my favorite was those crab roe lions' heads, but the ones in the capital were always lacking in flavor, so I rarely ate them later on. I didn't know that this very dish was precisely Auntie Zhang's specialty." Early the next morning, I brought that crock of crab roe lion's head, stewed to perfection and overflowing with fragrance, to my mother-in-law's breakfast table. She looked at the steaming soup crock before her, dazed for a moment. She lowered her head to taste a mouthful and remained silent for a long time. When she looked up again, her voice was full of emotion. "You child. Where did you find this £? As long as Mother likes it?" Then Aunt Zhang didn't go to all that trouble in vain. I responded with a faint smile. She put down the soup spoon, held my hand, looking at me lovingly. "You went to such trouble to cheer me up. Is there something you need to ask of Mother? Or did honor upset you? Just say it. Mother will back you up." "Not at all." I lowered my eyes to hide the emotion in them. "Can't your daughter-in-law just show you some filial piety?" "Then it must be Anner. Please stop making wild guesses." I interrupted her, the smile on my lips slightly restrained. "He's been extremely busy with official business lately. Busy romancing that girl he just met. In a little while, you'll likely have another daughter-in-law. Some desires naturally shouldn't be fully satisfied too easily. After all, if something is obtained too easily, one won't know how to cherish it." I've been visiting my mother-in-law's courtyard often these days. I noticed that her knees hurt whenever it rains, and she often has a dull ache in her waist and belly. I reckon it's the accumulated strain from years of running the household. I had Kuyun go and invite Auntie Li, the most famous massage matron in the capital. Matron Li used to serve the nobles in the palace. She's living in honorable retirement now and didn't really want to toil anymore. A while back, her granddaughter was being pestered by a few rich brats on the street, and I just happened to run into them. I hate those bullying bastards more than anything, so every time I come across them, I beat them up. My whip is very familiar to those rich playboys. They basically hide far away when they see me. For one thing, getting hit really hurts. For another, if it got brought up before the elders, my two brothers would inevitably have to go over and have a talk with them again. I just didn't expect that after getting married, I'd actually get lectured by Zhou Suyan. I originally thought he was worried about my safety, but thinking about it now, he probably just found me crude. Under Aunt Lee's careful nursing, my mother-in-law's legs became more agile day by day, and her complexion became much ruddier. Being that I've been handling things more steadily and thoroughly lately, my mother-in-law proposed time and again to hand over the household management rights to me, but I found excuses to politely decline them all. After I refused yet again, Kuyun looked completely puzzled and whispered to me when no one was around. "Miss, when you first got married, you didn't want it, but right now is a great opportunity for us to take over the household management. Why do you keep refusing?" I fiddled with the leaves of a pot of orchids on the windowsill, my tone flat. "I don't plan on staying in this household for long anyway, so what do I need the household management rights for?" But you've become so steady and capable now. Maybe the master will have a change of heart." There was still a glimmer of hope in Kuyun's eyes. I withdrew my hand and looked at her, my gaze cool and determined. Silly girl, once a man has a change of heart, how could it be just once? Today he likes the gentle and lovely type. Tomorrow he might fall for the feisty and lively type. I can't just change myself all the time to follow his mind that drifts like duckweed, can I? If I want to change, it's only because I want to become a better self, not to please anyone else. Kuyun seemed to understand, but not really, and I didn't say any more. One day, she will see clearly how thin-skinned Jo Suyan is, and understand what I said today. A few days later, I found a batch of rare silks and ornaments shipped by water from Jiangnan to give to my mother-in-law. She stroked the smooth, cool satin, unable to take her hands off it, her joy written all over her face. Afterward, she bragged to everyone she met, claiming she must have accumulated blessings for several lifetimes to get such a thoughtful and capable daughter-in-law. Perhaps life at the Zhou Manor was too stifling, as Jo Suyan actually started loitering outside the Duke's manor every few days, though he never managed to see me even once. Occasionally his luck was bad, and he'd run into my second brother returning to the manor. If he didn't run fast enough, he'd inevitably get another beating. However, doting parents all over the world are always the same. I had only stayed home comfortably for 3 or 4 months before Mom and Dad started nagging me. Mother complains I'm idle all day and act improperly, while Father has even wilder ideas, mulling over recruiting a live-in son-in-law for me. It just so happened that second sister-in-law's sister was getting married in Jiangnan, so I went with the flow and boarded the boat south with her. For one, I wanted some peace and quiet, and for another, I really did want to see the world out there. The misty landscapes of Jiangnan truly live up to their name, so gentle that it's hard to tear yourself away. Second sister-in-law had planned to stay just a few days after the wedding banquet before heading back, but I ended up dragging her all over the place to have fun. As for second brother's letters, most of them were just scolding me, so I couldn't be bothered to open them. By the time I'd had my fill of fun and returned home, it was already the end of the following year. Second sister-in-law only stayed with me for a few months before returning to the capital, saying she missed second brother, and before she left, she specifically told the family to take good care of me. The second day of the new year is usually for visiting friends and relatives, but since I'd been away from home for nearly 2 years and we had guests, the whole family decided to close the doors and have a private reunion. Who would have guessed? An uninvited guest just had to show up. We could have just had the steward kick him out, but he started shouting at the top of his lungs outside the manor gate regardless of anything. Since it was the new year, he drew a crowd of neighbors watching the drama, so we were forced to let him in. After not seeing him for nearly 2 years, Jo Suyan was like a completely different person. He was gaunt and haggard, with a lingering gloom in his eyes, and he looked like he had aged a lot. Tang. He stepped forward the moment he saw me, his gaze so cloying it was uncomfortable. "You've finally come back from clearing your head. I've been waiting for you every day these past 2 years, thinking of you every single moment." I took a step back, putting some distance between us, and said, "Lord Joe, please conduct yourself with dignity. We divorced long ago and have absolutely nothing to do with each other. I know you were just spiting me, which is why you traveled far away in a huff." He spoke hurriedly, with a ridiculous air of self-righteousness. "Now that you're back, the position of legal wife is still yours. As long as you wish, you can kick her out anytime. I'll do whatever you say." I almost laughed out loud. "Jo Suyan, the emperor bestowed this marriage, yet you dare to divorce her." He suddenly grabbed my arm. "What's so hard about that? Just pretend she doesn't exist. All the real power in the household will belong to you. And my mother has been constantly talking about you these past 2 years. Jo Suyan!" I shook off his hand. "Why do you never learn to cherish the person right in front of you? When I was here, you liked Zhang Yue. Now that she's here, you're reminiscing about how good I was. Someone like you who always gazes at what they can't have will only lose those who love you, time and time again. Seeing us arguing endlessly at the door with voices rising, my second brother inside the hall had long since grown impatient. He strode out, and without a word, picked Jo Suyan up like a little chick and escorted him straight out the front gate. This farce quickly became the talk of the town. Before long, Zhang Yue actually showed up at our door. I heard that after giving birth to a daughter, she hasn't had any more children, so her situation in the Zhou family has become increasingly difficult. Her complexion was sallow, her former grace completely gone, and the moment she saw me, she burst into tears. "Miss Shen, tell me, what exactly did I do wrong? My husband and I were in love from the start. After marrying into the Zhou residence, I strictly observed a wife's duties and managed the household diligently. So why does everyone in the residence dislike me?" I looked at her, feeling no ripples in my heart, just utterly weary. Are this couple treating me like a tree hole? When you stole someone else's husband back then, you should have realized that you might also be cast aside one day. Seeing she was still in that state of self-pity, I couldn't be bothered to waste words on her, so I ordered someone to politely escort her out. After all, a certain vinegar jar has been standing under the corridor for quite a while. Later on, Xu Heking charmed my parents until they were beaming with joy. He actually persuaded the two elders to throw us a big, lively wedding while the New Year festivities were still ongoing. I met him back in Jiangnan through a hero saves the beauty encounter. That day, someone happened to be making a scene at his medicine stall, so I stepped up to help out of kindness. Unexpectedly, I was careless and got hurt, so in the end, he was the one who bandaged my wound. Since he traveled around practicing medicine, I followed him all over the country, getting better and better at the bodyguard gig along the way. I heard that on our wedding day, there was a drunkard outside the manor, but before he could even get close to the wedding procession, my husband casually took care of him. He looked wretched, just like a drowned dog. My heart was used to running wild, so after getting married, I couldn't stand living in the capital for long. I just kept traveling the world with him. He had the skills to save lives, so every time we reached a new place, we'd set up a clinic to practice medicine. People came in an endless stream seeking treatment, while I stayed on the side helping to keep order and handle the chores. Occasionally there were troublemakers, but under my whip, they'd just quietly shut their mouths. Letters often arrived from home. Aside from the usual family chatter, second brother would always gleefully mention a few things about Jo Suyan in his letters. Since he couldn't divorce and a promotion was nowhere in sight, he gave up on himself, often lingering in the red light districts. Whenever he saw someone who looked like me or acted like me, he'd take them into his manor as a concubine. Zhang Yue was powerless to stop him and spent her days washing her face with tears. I heard she'd almost cried her eyes blind. But those are all other people's stories now. As for my own life, bumping along in a carriage, traveling across mountains and rivers, living free and unfettered, that is enough.